Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, in our podcast, we try to focus on things that are going to help you improve yourself, make yourself a little bit better every day, or learn something new every day. So, we would say that today's episode is probably a combination of those two because we are going to give you 5 tips on how to build your mental toughness. We've got 5 good tips. We can share some personal anecdotes on here. We've also got some pretty well-known people who demonstrate the type of attributes or the perseverance on each tip that we're looking for to kind of drive home the point that, hey, nobody is immune to this. Nobody has things handed to them on a silver platter, even if it seems like people are born on third base with a huge advantage over other people. They still have problems. They still have challenges. They still have to deal with setbacks in life, and they need to come up with coping mechanisms by which they can deal with the challenges, deal with the hardships, conquer them, overcome them, and still move towards the goals that they're trying to move towards. Because remember, what we're trying to do is make our lives better. We're trying to say, hey, I don't want to just settle for what life is going to give me. I want to go out and earn what's important to me. And that's the beautiful part of it is you get to choose what's important to you. If making a fuckload of money is important to you, more power to you. If having great relationships is important to you, more power to you. If having a really awesome career is important to you, more power to you. The point is, you get to choose. All of those things are hard. All of those things require work and dedication and sacrifice and perseverance. And you're going to need some mental toughness to get through those things. Life is tough. You're going to get kicked in the teeth a lot in life. And the sooner you come to realize that, the sooner you come to accept that, and the sooner you start developing the coping mechanisms that you need to succeed despite the obstacles you're going to encounter, the better off you're going to be. So, 5 practical tips, 5 real stories, that's going to help you level up your mental game to be a tougher person. Okay? That's the plan today. So, with that said, let's jump into it. We got a drink of water here real quick. So, tip number 1, you've got to learn to reframe failure as feedback. We talk about this a lot. So, when you take actions, you get an outcome. That's really that straightforward. You might not like the outcome. It might not have been the outcome you were hoping for. It might have been the exact opposite outcome you were hoping for. It's still just an outcome. And when we learn to say, instead of thinking, I failed at that, you think, okay, I learned that this is not a good approach, or I learned that this is going to be a problem, or I learned that I need to take care of A, B, and C before I try this again, then you're building mental toughness. You're building resiliency. You're taking the feedback that you got from your experiences and you're incorporating that feedback to make yourself better the next time you go out and attack. So you got to view setbacks. The mental shift here is you got to view the setbacks as essential data points, not signs to quit. Now, are there times where it does make sense to quit? Sure. You don't have to stick it out just because at one time you said, I'm going to do X or be X or think X. If that changes, that's okay. But you should be eyes wide open when it changes. And you should know that anything in life worth having is you're going to have to work for it. It doesn't get handed to you. It's not easy. We used to tell it a lot. We had salespeople who go out and call on customers and then come back and say, oh, my customer gave me all of my competitors' pricing. It's great. I'm like, okay, you know they gave our competitor your pricing, right? They're like, what do you mean? Like, you think they're just loyal to you? They're shopping everybody. That's how they are. And an account that's easy to get like that is easy to lose as well. It's the hard accounts where you have to develop the relationships that are worth having because they pay long-term dividends and you build long-term relationships with the people you're dealing with. So setbacks are data points. All it is feedback. You've got to learn to accept that feedback. So the story here is about Michael Jordan. And you know, the story about him getting cut from his high school team, it wasn't like they said, you're going to suck at basketball. He was a freshman or a sophomore. I can't remember which one it was. And they wanted someone taller. So they put him on JV. He grew 5 inches. He came back the next year. But the takeaway from this is instead of giving up, he said, you know what? This sucks. I'm not going to be cut anymore. I'm going to find a way to use this as fuel to drive myself to achieve over and over and over again. And even when I fail, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try again. And that's the takeaway here. He took this as feedback instead of failure. Pretty straightforward. So his famous quote is, "I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." There's a quote about him taking and missing the game-winning shot over 200 times. And he always says, "I'm proud of the fact they trust me to take the game-winning shot, even though it's not going to go in all the time." But you've got to change that. It's not failure, it's feedback. That's how you develop mental toughness. That's how you develop the ability to set aside your disappointment, to take a cold, hard look at what actually happened and figure out how you can use it to your benefit going forward. So the way to do that, next time you fall short, you don't get the outcome you're looking for, things don't go the way you want, write down 3 lessons that you've learned, and then get back to work. Quit licking your wounds, quit crying in your beer, quit feeling sorry for yourself, get back out there. So tip number 1, reframe failure as feedback. Okay, that's going to help you develop mental toughness. All right. Tip number 2, we want to learn to control the controllables. And I know it sounds so basic, but it's not, because so many people spend so much time, "Oh, I wish it wasn't raining outside." Well, it is raining. You don't control the weather. "I wish it wasn't so hot. I wish it wasn't so cold. I wish I was taller. I wish I was born into a different family." Blah, blah, blah. None of those things you have control over. So the concrete change here is you've got to stop obsessing over the things that are outside of your control. And you should focus only on your effort, your attitude, and your actions, because those are things you have 100% direct control over. The mental shift here is to let go of outcomes and double down on preparation and being present and ready to take advantage of the situation. So the example here is Serena Williams. So Serena Williams faced widely regarded as the best female tennis player in modern history. And she faced countless injuries, blood clots, respiratory illnesses. She had controversies because she had kind of a temper. Who isn't a competitor that doesn't have a temper? And critics. And she always came back stronger by focusing on what she could control. She could control her recovery. She could control her training. She could control her mental game. And it was her mental game that got in trouble sometimes because she'd let her anger and frustration get the better of her. And it would derail her during matches and tournaments and cause her problems. But when you know that you have the ability to hunker down and only focus on the things that you have control over, then you know that when the chaos hits, you're going to be able to calmly and rationally assess, okay, what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? I'm going to take all the energy I would have spent worrying and wasting my time and crying about what I could potentially happen, but I don't have control over it, and focus all of your time and effort on the things you have control over. You control your effort, you control your attitude, you control how you react to situations, you control your work ethic, you control your communication skills with other people, all things within your control. And that is where you want to spend your time if you're going to develop mental toughness and put yourself in situations to go past where you are now and break limits, break barriers, break through to where you want to be. So control the controllables. Okay. Tip number 3, got to lean into discomfort. Okay. Think of it this way. Discomfort equals growth. So there's a saying that says the reasonable man conforms to the normal norms of society. The unreasonable man asks society to conform to his norms. Therefore, all progress is made by the unreasonable man. And I know it sounds extreme and narcissistic and blah, 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 but it's not untrue. It's not untrue, right? And if you want to really push and get to where you want to be, you've got to lean into the pain. You've got to embrace the pain, embrace the discomfort, embrace the suck. There's a former Navy SEAL out there who wrote a book called Embrace the Suck. And choose hard things. Discomfort equals growth. Put yourself in situations where you have to struggle. Put yourself in situations where it's going to suck for a while. Discomfort isn't a threat. It's a training place, right? So if you're willing to put yourself in those situations over and over again, you can't help but get better. You can't help but expand your skills, your abilities, your mental toughness to drive through or grind through whatever the challenges are that are in front of you. And it's going to suck sometimes. No two ways about it. Life's so hard, nobody makes it out alive. And if you can develop the mental toughness, it puts you in a unique situation where when most people are folding up shop and calling it good, you're pressing forward. But to do that, you've got to lean into the discomfort. Good example here is David Goggins. You might have seen him on YouTube. He's wrote some books. He's a motivational speaker, also a former Navy SEAL, ultra endurance athlete. He overcame childhood trauma, obesity, and limitations by willingly choosing pain to build strength. So here's his quote: "You have to build calluses on your brain." So you've got to force your brain to deal with these situations over and over and over again until it hardens and says, got it, this doesn't bother me, I got it, we're going to keep pushing forward. So, and the way to make this happen, just pick one thing every week and say, you know what, this sucks, I'm afraid of it, and I'm going to do it this week. I'm going to make myself do it because I'm going to make myself uncomfortable this week because I need the growth that comes with that discomfort. So there you go, guys. Tip number 3. Tip number 4, talk to yourself, but don't listen to yourself. So you've got to change the inner voice. That's what we're saying here. Replace the inner voice negative talk with intentional, empowering inner dialogue. So you got to be your own coach, not your worst critic. It's no good to say, hey, that sucked. I'm no good. I'm never going to get this. Everybody else is better than me. Blah, blah, blah. Like, in Happy Gilmore, he says, you were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I'm very ugly. You're good looking. He's doing the over-the-top apology. That doesn't help you. That mental approach does not help you. You've got to be your own coach, not your worst critic. A coach tries to improve you and make you better and develop the resiliency that we're talking about so that when you are faced with the challenges that you inevitably will be faced with, that you can overcome them. So a good example here is Tom Brady, drafted 199th overall, said he wouldn't make it. And look, people say, the Patriots knew what they were doing. Bullshit, the Patriots knew what they were doing. The Patriots passed on Tom Brady 5 times. They could have picked him in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or 5th rounds. They didn't. And he took that personal. He said, you know what? I'm going to bust my ass and I'm going to earn a spot on this team. He visualized his success. He affirmed to himself his unwavering belief in himself and his abilities and stayed mentally sharp through every stage of that process. So here's a takeaway for this. Create 3 personal affirmations and repeat them daily, especially during tough moments. You can do it if you want, but don't do a Stuart Smalley, the Saturday Night Live character played by Al Franken, who's strong enough, who's smart enough, and doggone it, people like him. So he's kind of a cheesy character, a cheesy self-help character that appears on Saturday Night Live, and Al Franken played him. But if you're going to take this serious, think about it like a Tom Brady. He got drafted 199th. There was 3 quarterbacks ahead of him when he got to New England, including the former number 1 overall pick in the whole draft who just signed a massive contract extension and had previously taken the Patriots to the Super Bowl. And Brady said, I don't care. I'm going to find a way to win this job. So he dug in. He did the hard work. He was prepared. Drew Bledsoe gets injured severely against the Jets on a hit on the sideline by Mo Lewis. Brady steps up to take over the starting role, never gives it up. 20 plus years, 7 Super Bowls, Hall of Fame career later, he did not listen to the noise. He listened to himself and he told himself, you're good enough, but you got to earn it. You got to go out and earn it. And that's what he did. So, okay, now tip number 5, stay in the fight 1 step at a time. So like we're old baseball guy and we like to use baseball analogies. So if you're down 8-0, there is no 8-run homer. There's no way to make that up with 1 swing of the bat. So you've got to stay in it and chip away. And that's what they're saying here is break adversity into small wins. Don't try to win the war in one day. I couldn't go up to the plate and hit an 8-run home run. So it made no sense to go up there and swing out of my shoes. What I could do was get on base, drive in the runs that were there. And if we're down 8-0 and we play a 7-inning game, if we can score 1 to 2 runs an inning, we're still got a shot at this thing. But you got to chip away at it. So stay in the fight, but you got to take it 1 step at a time. Good example here is J.K. Rowling. Many people don't know that when she wrote the Harry Potter's books, she wrote them at a Starbucks because she didn't have internet at home. She was a single mother. She'd been divorced. She was broke. And then she gets this book done and she goes around and shops it. 12 publishers Told her to kick sand, kick rocks. We don't want what you're selling, lady. Nobody's going to buy that garbage. She persevered, kept writing, kept making the calls, and eventually was signed, and Harry Potter blew up into what it is now. So never would have happened if she wasn't mentally tough. Never would have happened if she didn't stick with it. Never would have happened if she was not of a high intestinal fortitude. But she was. And she just kept writing one chapter at a time. Book after book after book. And it's literally sold more copies than any other book except the Bible at this point. So, pretty impressive by her. Pretty good example of someone displaying mental toughness to pursue what's important to them and changing their life because of it. So, what's our takeaway here? When it feels impossible, ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do today to keep it moving? I might not be able to win the war today, but I don't want to lose it today. So what can I do to not lose the war today? That's a great kind of wrap up on that step right there. So, but those are the tips, guys. Let's just go over them one more time. Tip number 1 to develop mental toughness: reframe failure as feedback. Tip number 2, control the controllables. Don't worry about the rest of it. Tip number 3, lean into discomfort. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations regularly. It's very good for you. Tip number 4, talk to yourself, but don't listen to yourself. That means positive affirmations. You can do it. Block out the noise. Block out what others are saying about you and get after it. Get after your goals. And then tip number 5, stay in the fight and do it one step at a time. So you can't hit an 8-run home run, but you can score 2 runs this inning, 2 runs the next inning. All of a sudden you've cut the lead in half because you were down by 8 before. So that's the way to think about it. So if you don't know where to start, pick one thing, pick one tip and focus on that one tip. Journal it, write it in our comments, share it with us. We'd love to hear what you're talking about. Maybe you take this episode, send it to someone else and say, hey, I want you to be my accountability buddy when I start pursuing things. I want to tell you what I'm trying to get done so you can help hold me accountable. That's a great way to go. So, and let's just remember this as we sign off here, guys. Mental toughness is not a born innate skill. It's built, and you're building it right now by listening to our podcast, by taking these notes, by trying to incorporate these things into your real life. It's a great approach. And there is no substitute for grit, for toughness, for scrappiness. And if you can figure out how to keep that going on a regular basis, you're going to be so much better off than you are if you don't. So that's the episode for today, guys. James puts it up over here every day. SaltyGingerTalk.com is our website. We've got all of our social media accounts are on there. We've got all of our podcast episodes are on there as well. And then we've also got a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. And please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe on our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us so we can keep bringing you great content and not have to worry about charging anybody anything. So would love to get more followers so we can attract more advertisers, et cetera, et cetera. So really appreciate you guys checking out the channel today, guys. This is going to air on Friday. Want everyone to have a great weekend. Appreciate your time and attention. Hope everyone has a great day.